Hi, I'm Andreas Ulfsax, and I will try to explain complexity. And more importantly, I will talk about why this concept is so useful for you as a development practitioner in your daily work. So let's get started. And we will start in maybe a bit surprising way. I want you to imagine yourself that you're on a hike. You've been out in the wilderness and you're getting back to civilization. And you made a plan this beautiful Saturday morning. So, how do you think it will go to follow this plan? Probably quite okay, but there was actually a swamp that wasn't on the map, so you had to make a detour. So it took a little bit longer than you expected, but overall, things went really well. Now, I want you to rewind in time and think about the same Saturday morning. There is just one slight change. There is dense fog. But you made your plan. How do you think that will go to execute this plan in dense fog? Probably really, really badly. You need a totally different approach here. Firstly, you need to question is it realistic that I get back to that exact cabin? You probably instead need to go back to civilization. Any road would do here. And the plan, just skip it. You need to have a totally different approach. You need to be aware about the surroundings. Maybe follow a small river downhill. You need to always know where you are on the map by observing your surroundings. So, what can this then learn us? That we have two different systems. One is the clear sunny day and one is the foggy one. So the learning here is that we need to be aware about the conditions, about the system we're in, to be able to apply the right methods. So when we applied the sunny clear sky method in the foggy situation, it led to a disaster. Also, here we are going to talk about complexity, and the foggy situation bears some resemblance to complex situation. It's not a perfect picture, but it has some characteristics from this. But let's start with a clear sky. So here is what I call the complicated but ordered system. So the hiking was one example. Another one would be fixing a car. So if you are a car mechanic, you apply certain methods and then you are able to fix the car. And if the same problems come in, you would apply the same methods and you will fix the car. So there is enough predictability here to design cause and effect. And past can be used to predict the future, so there is a good or best practice. The approach here would be to analyze, plan, and spend a lot of time on that, and then you act, you do things, you hike. And afterwards you can evaluate and improve. The whole development sector is kind of designed for this thinking. This is where it all started. We digging wells, building schools. So most of the tools available, they work. We have LFA, theory of change, problem tree. Works perfectly for complicated situations. So a metaphor here would be build it like an engineer. Let's come to the interesting one. Let's talk about complex situation. So I call them complex and unordered. So here, the situation is very different from the complicated one. It's not possible to predict cause and effect. It doesn't mean that it's random, But there are patterns, but you can't really say, if we do this, this will happen. You can discover emergent practices, though it's not randomness, and you do it by experimentation. So you push the system in different ways, and then you see what happens. The approach here would be to probe. So probe is testing something that is safe to fail, and then sense how did things change, and then you act on it. Tools. Not so many tools are adapted for complex situations, but you have outcome mapping, probing, micronarratives, and others. A metaphor here would be grow it like a gardener. So the point with this, and this is what my main point for this presentation is, you need to be aware about what situation you are in, because different tools and approaches fits the different situations. So then, of course, we need to ask, what are the examples? What situations are we often in? So let's take a few examples here and sort them in. Standard surgery. You come in to the hospital with a broken arm. I think most of us would at least hope that this is a complicated problem. So the doctor would apply the standard procedure and your arm would be fixed. Corona on human societies. I think no one could predict how things actually turned out. So this would be one of those complex problems. Raising a child, complex one. Building schools in Tanzania, that's a more complicated one. There's a right answer to it. And lastly, advocacy work on reproductive rights in Guatemala. This is a more complex one. So how can we then deal with it? What's the method? What's the approach here for you as a development practitioner? Before that, just to say, it connects also to the Cynefin framework. So you can just Google that and there is a connection here to what I'm teaching here today to that framework. But how to work with complexity? So you have this probe, sense, act. Be acutely aware how things change when you do things and use these insights to constantly adapt practices. So you can use this kind of model to think about it. So you're going to do a project or a program, but if the situation is very complex, you maybe need to do a pilot. And maybe if it's even more complex, you need to do those probes, safe to fail experiments. So let's say that you're doing a social media campaign in Guatemala. The traditional way to do it would be to spend a lot of time planning it. You would talk with the expert. You would do your problem tree. You would set those indicators and then you implement. But if you believe it's a complex problem, your approach is very, very different. Then you would maybe compile 4 different social media messages. You send them out on different platforms and you see what comes back. What's the reaction to this? And from that, you kind of build on what works and you develop the project. So how do IAM actually work with this? It's a part of the decolonization work and with this adaptive management. We have much less plans now compared to a couple of years ago. We work with core funding because we want our partners to be able to handle complex situations also. We work more with direction than exact results. And our RBM system, it focuses on what works. This is the question we always tells us. Slowly, we are building this feedback and experimentation culture, and we also work a lot with micro-narrative from our partners and from rights holders. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day. Bye-bye.